Coming up next, Sitting at 30 takes you downtown for the weekly luncheon meeting of the City Club of Portland. Live weekly coverage of City Club is produced through the facilities of Portland Cable Access. Now we join the City Club for this week's program.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I'm Paddy Tillett, President of the City Club. Welcome to City Club program in Fast Company. Today we focus on innovation in the new economy with Alan Webber, former Portlander, editor and co-founder of Fast Company magazine. Mr. Webber is here today in conjunction with an innovation partnership event and with the support of AT&T. But first, some announcements. Join us next week on Friday the 29th of June for a program entitled Wild in the City, named for the book of the same name, a local bestseller with which I'm sure many of you are familiar. Our speakers will be the book's authors, Mike Houck, who is urban naturalist for the Audubon Society in Portland, and M.J. Cody, travel columnist for the Oregonian. That'll be here at the MAC. I'm proud to announce that the City Club's historic ascent of Mount Hood in 1924 has been successfully repeated. 16 stalwarts made the climb last weekend, and 13 of them reached the very summit. Congratulations to all of you. It looks as though you picked the right weekend to do it too, because the outlook is for gloomy skies this weekend. As every alert Oregonian knows, the City Club website offers access to research reports, past club program presentations, upcoming events, and membership information. You can find it all at www.pdxcityclub.org. You may have read in this week's bulletin that we have an intern from Reed College working at the club offices for 10 weeks this summer. He's doing preliminary research for a study on citizen oversight of the police in Portland. That'll be initiated in the next few months. His name is Andy Rumbach. Andy, will you please stand? Oh, he's still outside, is he? Well, let's give him an applause that he can hear outside. Our board host today is Susan Kelly, President-elect. She'll ask the first question of our speaker. Following Susan's question, we'll welcome questions from City Club members in the audience. Please be ready with your question at the microphone before Susan has finished so that we can make the most of Mr. Webber's time. Please identify yourself as a member of the City Club and ask your question in 30 seconds or less. Broadcast of City Club programs this quarter is made possible in part by corporate underwriting from CH2M Hill, from Providence Health Systems, and the Weyerhaeuser Company Foundation. We're very grateful for their support. Alan Webber was born in St. Louis and moved to Portland after graduating from Amherst College. He spent 10 years here editing alternative newspapers that many of you will remember, the Oregon Times, now long gone, and of course Willamette Week, which is still going strong and irreverently as ever. Then he went to work for Neil Goldschmidt, who was our mayor at the time. When Goldschmidt became Jimmy Carter's Secretary of Transportation, Alan Webber went with him as a special assistant. The next stop was Harvard Business School, where he became a senior research assistant. He spent 6 years editing the Harvard Business Review before founding Fast Company magazine with Bill Taylor. This magazine, The New Economy, immediately hit a chord with both its readers and, perhaps more importantly, its advertisers. Just 5 years later, it changed hands for a reported $350 million. That's 4 times as much as the sale of Wired magazine made, so it's pretty impressive. Fast Company ranges from the irreverent to the iconoclastic in its coverage of business and management. It's about a fundamental shift away from the military model hierarchies of the recent industrial era and into the horizontal structure of ideas-based industries in a global marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the creator of Fast Company, Alan Webber.
Thank you, Patty. I think we should hire you to record commercials for us. That's the most cogent explanation of our magazine that I think I've ever heard. It's a real honor and a treat to be here in Portland at the City Club. I did a quick scan of the audience, and segmented you folks into two groups. There's the half of the audience that knew me when I lived in Portland and worked with me and can't figure out why I could possibly be giving a speech to you. And then there's the half of the audience that didn't know me when I lived in Portland, didn't work with me, and also can't figure out why I should be giving a speech to you. So I managed to unite Portland just by my presence. It's a rare skill. I wanted to talk today with the time that we have, which is unfortunately short, and editors like to talk long, about the confluence of what Fast Company is about, the new economy, and some of the opportunities that are today available in Portland to create the future. And thinking about it, I cycled quickly back to the past, because in a fundamental way, Fast Company magazine, which today is about 5 years old, has circulation of something like 680,000, on our way to 720,000, has 38,000 people in more than 100 cities around the world who have joined something called the Company of Friends, clubs in cities. There's a cell group here in Portland. Fast Company, in a fundamental way, was born in Portland, Oregon. It's a child of the battle over the Mount Hood Freeway, over the need for regional land use planning, over the creation and beginning execution of the downtown plan. It's a child of a basic lesson of my experience in the city of Portland, and that is that there is an irrefutable logic to the life and the death of the urban fabric. And that what I saw in Portland in the 1970s was that a combination of participation and energy and passion, but most of all of deeply rooted values married to very careful and tough-minded analysis, can yield a strategy to build a city that has a future. It was an example of a group of people, and it wasn't just Neil Goldschmidt, it was an entire movement of people who rallied to this cause, who believed, I think, at the core that there was a higher road that you could take in the world of politics and urban life. And there was a conviction that if you had sound thinking about what really did matter in the life of a city, and hard work in trying to bring that message to the people of the city, and a modicum of organization and a certain amount of chaos, you could create a better future for an entire city. That was what I learned in Portland. And when I went back to Boston and did my time at the Harvard Business Review, and when Bill Taylor and I were imagining a magazine, we imagined that there was similarly a magazine that could take the higher road for business and for work life, and that there was a new generation of people entering the world of business who not only wanted to make a living, they wanted to make a difference. And that there was a global marketplace rather than local or only national marketplaces, that there were new models, new ideas, new forms of competition, new forms of collaboration, and that there was a gender shift as well. That we were seeing for the first time in the history of American business an equal population of men and women entering the workplace with real power and the ability to bring change to business. Add to that the fourth component, information technology, which was in 1995, when we launched Fast Company, just beginning to take off. And you had the capacity to reroute human connections and conversations, to cross the boundaries of time and space inside companies, to blow away functional differences, to get apart from the old habits of mind and practice that said you have to be in the same building, at the same level, in the same function to work with each other. And instead, what you get is an unleashing of innovation and individual initiative. At the heart of Fast Company, just as at the heart of Portland in the 70s, was the conviction that one person with an idea and a connection to the internet and a sprinkling of venture capital and a great Rolodex of friends and colleagues could change a company, an industry, an entire category of business, or, in the case of a city, could change the community and bring people together with shared values. And we believed then, and we still believe, that there is an irrefutable logic of the new economy. And that logic drives us to believe that work is personal, that computing is social, that it brings people together, that knowledge is power, and that the rules of business from the old economy were made to be broken. I think those same premises are at the heart of the Innovation Partnership, and we held a breakfast meeting today that got at the core of that concept, that there is an irrefutable logic as well to creating a community of shared interest. It's a hybrid between the values of community that have been at the heart of Portland and the values of the new economy. And that when you bring those together, you end up with a very powerful partnership indeed. There are three fundamental propositions that the new economy celebrates and that are shared by the folks at the Innovation Partnership. The first proposition is the team with the best ideas wins. This is a competition for ideas. And if you can come up with genuinely great ideas, you can capture the imagination, the spirit, and the participation of people, whether you're in a business or in a city. The challenge is to think hard about where great ideas come from. At Fast Company, we've identified 4 places where great ideas come from. That's common sense. Great ideas, it turns out, don't come from the CEO. They don't come from the mayor. They don't come from the boss. They don't come from the Department of Great Ideas. They come first from people with dirty fingernails. People who work close to the problem, whether it's making a product, delivering a service, or working in a neighborhood. It's the people who have their hands dirty, who know the innovations that could change and improve the city. They come from people on the periphery of the organization, people who are further away from City Hall or from corporate headquarters, because the closer you get to the throne of power, the less likely you are to want to take a risk or be challenged by the boss. When you're on the periphery, you can ask for forgiveness rather than for permission, and you try new things, and in the process, you come up with innovations. Great ideas come from customers. They come from the people who are actually buying your product or your service, or who are citizens of your community, and who are in that sense customers who choose to live in Portland. Now, we live in a world where people can pretty much live anywhere, work with anyone, connect with anyone, and you're competing for those people. They are your customers. The challenge is to listen to them, because they will be a source of innovation. And the fourth source of innovation in companies, and also in cities, are new hires. The source of great ideas in companies are the people with new blood and fresh eyes who come into an organization and ask the right question, which is, why do we do it that way? It doesn't make any sense. Why don't we try this? Now, they have a half-life of about 90 days in most companies before they're told to sit down, shut up, and do as they're told. But the companies that get it and that have a shot at innovation are the companies that listen to those new hires and in fact practice something that is called reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring takes a young kid who ordinarily would be given a senior person to mentor them and says, we're going to assign that young kid to a senior person to mentor the senior person. Because let's face it, it's the old fogies who need all the help they can get. Well, the same thing holds true in cities, or possibly, from what Patty was telling me, city clubs, where the challenge is to bring in fresh blood and new ideas. That's 4 places to look for innovation. And it's where the Innovation Partnership gets it right. because it's granular, it's close to the streets, close to the neighborhoods, close to the fresh ideas, close to the people with dirty fingernails. The second proposition that is true for the new economy and true for cities is the team with the best people wins. If you're looking for great ideas, there's only ultimately one place to find them, and that's with great people. You know, if you go back and you check the New York Times on the day that the Department of Justice filed its suit against Microsoft, Bill Gates had what I thought was a really brilliant quote. He said, "The Department of Justice is going to do what they're going to do about our challenges to competitiveness and competition, but there's one thing they can't affect, and that is our ability to hire more than our fair share of truly great people." And if you want to win, if you want to dominate, if you want to conquer the world, which I suspect Bill Gates does, then your job is to hire more than your fair share of the truly great people. If you're a city, the same challenge pertains. It's your job to attract and retain more than your fair share of the truly great people. How do you do it? Well, we ran an interview in Fast Company with an academic, a guy named Richard Florida, who is the founder and director of the Software Industry Center at Carnegie Mellon, who recently did a study on the marriage of talent and geography. And by the way, anyone who wants to find any of these stories, they're on our website, www.fastcompany.com. You can download them for free. What Richard found is that talent doesn't look for a company to work for, it looks for a community to work in. Talent seeks inclusivity. It looks for the community that throws the biggest tent and invites the most people under it. Talent looks for amenities and choices, a chance to try new things and be part of a community with energy. And talent recognizes in the new economy that work is serious, but it has to be fun. In fact, it may sound like an oxymoron, but it has to be serious fun. That if you want people to be innovative and creative, committed, passionate, and productive, you have to give them a chance to tap not only their capacity to do great work, but also their desire to have great fun. And the third proposition that is true of the Innovation Partnership and the new economy is the notion that the team with the best leaders wins. And this is where it really gets interesting, because the model of leadership that most of us have in our heads is the industrial age model of leadership. It's top-down leadership. It's command and control leadership. It's what we at Fast Company say about our competitor magazines, Fortune and Forbes and Business Week. Their version of leadership, when you look at their covers, is invariably one thing: a photograph of a white man facing right. Test it out. Go to the newsstand. There you will see on Fortune, Forbes, and Business Week a photograph of a charismatic-looking white man facing right, usually with a headline that says Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jack Welch, that's pretty much the pantheon, the toughest SOB ever to lead a company. And then there'll be a celebratory profile inside. Well, the problem with that model of leadership is it's not only obsolete, it's completely wrong. It's not how the world works. Maybe it's not how the world ever worked, but it's not how you create the future. The future looks like a guy named Mike Abrashoff, who we wrote about in Fast Company. Talk about command and control. Mike Abrashoff was until recently a commander in the U.S. Navy. He took over as captain of the USS Benfold, and the day he took over as the captain of that ship was the day he says he learned about leadership. He was piped onto the ship as the old commander was leaving. And as the old captain left, the entire crew cheered. And Mike Abrashoff went to the executive officer and said, "You know, that was embarrassing. That was humiliating to the old captain, to his family, to me. Why did the crew cheer?" The executive officer said, "Well, I beg your pardon, Captain, but I'll tell you the truth. The old captain, he didn't get it. I mean, what you have to understand is that a ship is like a tree, and we're all monkeys. The captain is up at the top of the tree. When the captain looks down, he sees a lot of smiling faces looking up. But we're down at the bottom of the tree. And when we look up, we have a very different view. And so Mike Abrashoff's lesson was, and it's a lesson on leadership, the job of the captain is to see the ship through the eyes of the crew. And what he did was unheard of in the Navy. He invited every single member of the crew, one person at a time, into his private quarters, and he asked him 3 questions. What do you like about this ship? What do you hate about this ship? What would you like to change about this ship? And anyone who had a suggestion that was worthy of a try, Abrashoff implemented. 1 year later, he had saved taxpayers $1.4 million by implementing the suggestions of his crew. More important, he had a ship that was selected the best ship in the Pacific Fleet by the US Navy. He had a crew that had 100% re-enlistment rate. And when Mike Abrashoff left as the captain of the ship, he gave the shortest speech in the history of the Navy as a going away speech. He saluted the crew. He said, "I think you folks know how I feel about you," and he left. And when he got on shore, he sent an email back to the executive officer. He said, "How did the crew respond?" And the executive officer said there wasn't a dry eye in the crew. And Abrashoff's question is, when you leave your job, when you leave your company, when you leave your community, how do you want to go? Do you want to go to cheers, or do you want to go to tears? The bottom line is that in the new economy, like in a community, the job of the leader today is not to be the big boss with all the answers. The job of the leader is fundamentally to create more leaders, to share information, to share opportunity, to try new ideas, to spread innovation. And that's what the Innovation Partnership is all about. I want to leave you with one last thought in the form of 3 questions. About 8 or 9 years ago, a guy named Jim Collins wrote a very influential book called Built to Last. Then last March, Jim wrote a cover story for us at Fast Company called Built to Flip. And the theory of Built to Flip was we are building companies for all the wrong reasons. We're creating companies with the pure idea And there are 3 questions, he suggested, that we should all ask when it comes time to analyzing whether we're on the right track or the wrong track in our work or in our community. Question number 1, are you on the right bus? Or in the case of Portland Light Rail Line. Are you on the right bus? Are you clear about your mission, your motives, and are you doing work that matters? I think the Innovation Partnership is doing work that matters. It's about the work of creating a constituency for the future that's inclusive, that's technologically sophisticated, and that is inherently democratic. That's a bus we should all be on. Are you with the right people on the bus? Look around. See who you're working with. See if you've got it possible for the right people to join in the journey that you're set off on. And the third question is everyone in the right seat? Do you have people playing constructive roles where they can contribute from their strengths? Now, Jim's got a new book coming out in the fall. It's called Good to Great, and we'll be carrying a piece of that in our October issue. The theory of good to great is that if you look around at companies, there are thousands of them that have been good for a long time, 20 years or more. Jim did the research. There are exactly 11 that have made the transition from being good to great in terms of their actual performance. 11. I think the same thinking applies to a city or a community. Coming back to Portland, it's absolutely clear to me that this is a good city. The people care about it. It's beautiful. There's a sense of involvement and investment, a feeling of vitality and energy. The question is, what will it take to make it a great city? What will it take to win with ideas, win with talent, and win with leadership? I'm clear in my mind that there's one opportunity that's presenting itself, and that's the innovation partnership. It's an invitation to create the future that you want to inhabit. And I just want to encourage everyone to accept that invitation and to create that future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. It's really exciting to have you back in Portland after all these years, and I have a couple of things to say, so I hope I don't go over my 30-second.
You're allowed.
Okay. First of all, since Alan did work out of City Hall in the early 70s, and I'm there now, I very much would like you to come and tour it, because thanks to a great architect here, we have a fabulous new City Hall, or 3 years old now, that we would have lost. We would have had to tear it down. It was ready to be condemned, but good leadership, good planning, and we've got a wonderful new building. Because you were here then, and you've been doing so many other interesting things, and clearly the information you're sharing, your magazine, I was very impressed with. I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope to read more.
We'll sell you a subscription.
Okay. Okay. But I'm thinking, though, because you're in this vantage point, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will. You were here in those really creative, headsy times in the early 70s, and a part of the things that you mentioned, the downtown plan and the ending of the Mount Hood Freeway. I'd like you to tell us what you see missed opportunities in that interim time and in the 25, 30 years since you've been here. I know we've done some things right. I mentioned the streetcar. We're on track. But I'm sure there's lots of missed. That's kind of vague, but.
Wow. That's one of those the hardest questions to answer. It's about the dogs that didn't bark as opposed to the ones that did. I guess the challenge to Portland is not a challenge of specific missed opportunities, and what I was trying to suggest in my talk was it's more a challenge of psychology and complacency. I think the reality is that when you live in a place like Boston, where my wife Frances and I have lived for the last 19 years, there's very little complacency because there's a very poor quality of life. Boston likes to think of itself as the hub of the universe. The reality is it's the Balkans of the United States. People love to fight, and the basic slogan of Boston is, it's not enough that I should win, you should lose. And that's a very negative mindset, but I think it's the truth, and it's true for a lot of big eastern cities. I think what happens with Portland is it's a lovely city. It's a beautiful city, and most of the problems are completely tolerable. They are at a low level of pain, and they are very easy to feel pretty good about. And I would guess that on virtually every urban indicator that matters, Portland is ranking in the highest percentiles of performance. And so I think the challenge is not one of specific missed opportunities so much as a challenge to overcome natural human tendency toward self-congratulation and complacency. And to recognize that, yeah, the 70s were a heady time, but they're way over. And it's not enough to celebrate them. I mean, the saying, that's so 1970s, is so 1970s. And the game now is to figure out just how vibrant the future can be. Where I sit in Fast Company, I am blown away virtually every day by people who are inventing, trying, challenging, testing new things in the world of business, in the world of nonprofits. This is a revolutionary time. This is a period of fundamental ferment in thinking, in practice. There is almost nothing that you can think of that you can't try. Now, the economy has hit a pause button lately, but there's still an enormous amount of experimentation going on in technology, genomics, in national trade. And the challenge, I think, for a place like Portland is to think about the next great chapter in the city's history and not to think about how cool the 70s were. In a way, I'm your worst enemy. I'm your worst nightmare because I've got you facing the nostalgia of the past rather than the prospect for the future. Yes, sir. Bail me out quickly.
Hi, Alan. I'm Chris Smith, a club member and a new economy worker and a subscriber.
Ah, thank you.
I'm going to ask you about the pause button because I've noticed that my copy of the magazine is a lot thinner in the last few months than it has been. When does the pause come off and what does it look like after we hit play again?
Good question. Well, first of all, the reason we decided to make the magazine thinner is that we discovered a direct correlation between my weight and the size of the magazine. And we decided that if the magazine got thinner, maybe I would. No, last year was an aberration in the world of business and in the world of magazine publishing. We had magazines that were 450 pages thick, and it was not appetizing, it was not inviting, it was bizarre. And this year, I think, while the economy is on pause, there's a lot of people among our readership group who think it's a good thing because they can actually pick up the magazine without risking back strain. When will we get off of pause? Well, the interesting thing is that in general we are on pause, but there are a lot of places where we're not on pause. I mean, it is no longer safe to talk about one economy. There are regional economies, there are urban economies, there are parts of the United States that don't know there's a recession or a slowdown, and there are other parts that are really mired in the depths of it. I was recently in San Diego. I don't think the people in San Diego think there's a pause button. I think there are people in Austin who still don't know there's a pause button. Dell may be one that is feeling it, but in general, they're going gangbusters. I keep scanning the economic data, and I keep seeing conflicting patterns. One set of patterns say we have not hit the bottom yet. The round of layoffs is continuing. It's spread from the tech sector to the next tier of the economy. When you've got a company like Nortel that has a $19.2 billion loss, you're going to have serious fallout from that kind of a problem. And then you look at the data that say, well, that's all true, except housing starts are up. Greenspan continues to take the prime rate down, and consumer confidence is still booming along. We've probably hit bottom, and by the fall, there'll be a return to some spending. I think we are living in an economy where we're going to have to get used to these parallel universes existing side by side. Magazines will probably not come back this year, one industry. I don't see the ad community rallying anytime soon, and I think everybody's looking for somebody to be the first mover. But there are other industries, wireless being one, where there really isn't a pause button. They're going full speed ahead into the future. Intel continues to spend. There may be some drop off, but we did an interview with Craig Barrett, and his straight statement was, Intel is all about creating the future. You don't hit the pause button when you're creating the future. I think it's a Jackson Pollock painting, and you have to draw your own conclusion. Yes, sir.
60 or 70 years ago in this country, there was a strong labor movement, and largely because of what was maybe a more oppressive model of big business in those days. Could you comment on, I guess, the need for or the role of organized labor in the new economy?
Good question. Right now, in the United States, there are something like 23 million people who call themselves free agents. They either work for themselves, they work as head of their own small company, they operate as people who have multiple jobs and move from gig to gig. They are the brand called you. 23 million free agents is more than the total number of private sector labor union members in the United States. So we currently have an economy where there are more people who think they can look out for their own best interests as free agents than by joining a private sector labor union. What that says to me is that the organized labor has to reinvent itself with a whole new set of theories of the case. They have to come to terms with a redefinition of the role they play and the benefits they provide their members. One example, we did an interview with a guy at MIT, very smart man, who is looking at the organizations of the future, who says, talk about nostalgia and 70 or 80 years ago, the real model for the labor union of the future are the guilds of the past. That more people today affiliate with their work skills than with a union. And that what guilds provided people in the Middle Ages was a chance to learn from each other, pool risk, share benefits, whether they were working or not working. It was a horizontal union rather than a vertical union. And what he sees, Tom Malone is his name, is a future where increasingly something like the Screen Actors Guild, which is after all a guild and a union, becomes the norm for software workers, software writers, people who are involved in high tech of all kinds. And high tech is a leading indicator of all kinds of other forms of organization. He foresees a back to the future return of the guild. I don't know that he's right, but I do think it's an interesting way to think about the evolution of the union movement and whose interests they serve and how they organize to do it. Any other takers? These questions are free.
Meg McGill, City Club member. When you talked about the size of your magazine going down, tell me a little bit about the impact of online information as opposed to getting it in paper and a new way of thinking of getting information from a variety of sources.
Great question. This is another example of how I think, this question, the challenge of online and paper, it's another example of how in the new economy we keep learning new stuff all the time. I think the early thinking of the internet was either or thinking. That surely the rise of the internet would lead to the downfall of printed products, that magazines, paper would go away. Instead, what we witnessed was the largest boom in the start of magazines about the internet in the history of the United States, and there was more paper than ever. The reason is that the medium, the paper medium and the digital medium are fundamentally different. What you do with a magazine and what you do with a screen, a flat panel display, are fundamentally different. How you enjoy reading them are fundamentally different, and what they offer you are different. Our theory at Fast Company, and we've got a very healthy and I think terrific website that my partner Bill Taylor is currently running, what we always felt was that the web was good for certain things. It was good for interactivity. It's easier to talk back through the web than to a magazine. It was good for speed. You could post stories very quickly. It was great for the opposite of speed, which is permanence. If we post every article we've ever written on the website and you can download it whenever you want, we've created the world's best library. It was good for community building, and community is at the heart of much of what technology enables. So we could create the company of friends through people going to the website, registering, and then meeting in a real place as a club. That's what the web is great at. What's paper great at? Well, paper is great for portability. It's great for look and feel. If the paper quality is great and the printing product is great, you've got production values that you can't begin to approximate with the web. And it also has a kind of familiarity. We all know that when a magazine arrives at our home, it's like a visit from a friend. It's got a sense of kind of a habit of mind and of learning. That's what paper is good for. And rather than having an either-or choice, we believed in a both-and strategy. And we consequently put all of our content, put it up online, made it interactive, made it a place where you could go to have community, and actually sold a ton of subscriptions through our website. Yes, Steve?
Alan, when we were working in the nostalgic 70s, we had the idea of citizen involvement, and it kind of came out of the Vietnam War, but we would have a rally or a get out the vote effort, and 400 or 500 people would show. I went to a hearing last night and there were 4 people there. It's obvious that the role of government has changed dramatically, and I talk to my children and they think, oh well, government, it may be relevant, maybe not. It seems to me that there needs to be a better way to communicate using the tools that are available. Is it your sense in looking at all the people you talk with and listening that government is becoming, quote, irrelevant, or is there a way to communicate that is different now, and what are those tools that might be used by government in order to reach people?
Right. Great question. I think that's part of what the Innovation Partnership is trying to get at. The marriage of technology and community to create a sense of participation and opportunity. But I think the tools are incidental, or they're only as good as the people who use them. The technology is there. You can do it right now. And the technology, as some of the folks said this morning at our breakfast, the technology doesn't have to be the internet. It doesn't have to be a PC. It could be a telephone. It could be a television. You can have interactivity lots of different ways. And a meeting is a form of technology. A lunch is a form of technology. What we're doing here is a talk show done as a lunch. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't necessarily have to be more techie than you need to be. What you do need, I think, is a sense of purpose. You do need a sense of the moment, that something is at risk. You do need a sense of an energizing force, a convening force. Again, I think the Innovation Partnership is all about that. You need a sense of urgency. There has to be a reason to participate. And sometimes, the reason to participate is a backlash against what you're experiencing. It's a reaction against a vote where there's so low turnout that you become concerned about the future of the democratic process, or a vote where you think that the vote count wasn't quite the way you'd like it to be done, and you become energized by that. You become energized if you think your interests are at stake. You become energized if you think there's something of the moment that you really need to speak to. I know that the neighborhood movement in my time in Portland was fundamentally about dealing with threats. The threat of a freeway, the threat of an unwanted hospital expansion, a whole set of threats that were really alive at that time in Portland's history. So that obviously motivates people. It strikes me that, Steve, your new job is to become a very dangerous person and unleash some nefarious scheme that will mobilize the community. If you can't do that, then you've got to find another motivating force. And sometimes it is the promise of a better alternative to what's good enough. Because the real danger in a company or in a city is that good enough is the enemy of real progress and getting even better. And if you don't have threats, if you don't have airport expansions, nuclear power plants, you've got to find a different rallying cry. And I think that's what's going on in Portland right now. People are looking for a way to rally around a different set of causes, maybe a positive and enabling set of causes rather than a threatening one.
Well, Robert, City Club member. So you mentioned progress. And what I'd like to do is ask you a question about the new economy and Adam Smith's invisible hand and the notion of sustainability, responsibility, a whole system that really works, where nobody and nothing is left out. And is what you're observing a new economy and innovation that does have that scope of being able to appreciate the whole and the impact that entity or the whole institution of business is having on the whole? So that's
Yeah.
the arena and your observations about that.
Good
Thanks.
question. Part of what the new economy promises, and I think it's up to everybody who participates in it to decide whether it's going to keep the promise or not, is the notion that there is a higher road to capitalism, to doing business, to going to work in the morning. It's a promise, but you're not guaranteed the outcome any more than a republic or a democracy is something that is sustained without everybody participating. The promise of the new economy says one person with a great idea and a Rolodex and a little bit of money and a good group of friends and a connection to the internet can make a huge difference. Doesn't matter whether you make it in a company, a not-for-profit, or a community organization, one person can make a huge difference. It says that the team with the best ideas wins. And in that sense, it's all about outthinking the competition. That there is a logic to how the game gets played, that if you play it right and hard, more times than not, you'll win. It's not a guaranteed outcome, but it's an opportunity. There is a sense of participation and inclusiveness, that there's no reason why everybody can't play this game. There's no one right way to do anything anymore. I remember years ago when I was doing a book on the auto industry, and I went to Japan, and I sat down with one of the heads of the Toyota family, and I was at the Harvard Business School, and he said, I know you teach, he thought I taught, I didn't, I know you teach at the Harvard Business School. There's one book here at Toyota that we all use to run Toyota. And he reached down and he pulled out this dog-eared copy of My Years with General Motors by Alfred Sloan. He said, everything we need to know about running an auto company is in this book. And he wasn't the only person who had that as the plug-and-play game plan for running a large company. Well, that's the way it was in companies, that's the way it was in cities. We all had one right way to do everything. And if you weren't included, you would never be included. You couldn't break through. Today, the technology is there, the opportunity to participate is there, there isn't enough talent to go around, so it is much more democratic, and the opportunity really is to do this right, this being capitalism. And there are many versions of capitalism. If you go to France, there's one version. If you go to Singapore, there's another. If you come to the United States, there's another. And within the United States, Silicon Valley is one form, and New York City is another. So there are all these different models competing to play the game smarter, faster, cheaper, and better. And if you think the right way to play it is to be inclusive, to tap into people who have been left behind, to save the environment as a part of your economic model, today you have a chance to test that theory. And in the past, you never did. You're not guaranteed that you're going to win, but you're guaranteed a shot at your model. And that's the promise of the new economy. Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Lipset from the City Club. With Oregon's system of education and our standard of wages, can we remain competitive with the rest of the United States?
Wow. That assumes a whole lot more knowledge of me than I have of your wage rate in Oregon and the ins and outs of the education system. So rather than being able to give you a definitive answer, let me just say you've touched on a really critical issue. If you go back to the notion that the team with the best talent wins, the question is, what are you doing to create and attract and retain the best talent? If you believe, as I do, that we've moved from an economy of tangible goods to intangible goods, ideas, energy, initiative, people, then Oregon, to be competitive, has to have more than its fair share of the best people. Education is a critical factor. It's not the only factor. It's possible that you could you could drop out of college and start a company and become the world's richest man. They say it's been done. And so in that sense, education is not absolutely determinative, but in the workplace, it matters. Go back to my auto industry days. I remember going to a factory in Japan, and the factory foreman said to me, you know, we've got something in this factory, we've got a tool that you don't have in the United States. I looked around and I couldn't see anything different. I'd been in a lot of US factories. I said, what is it? He reached into his pocket and he took out a pencil. He said, all of our factory workers have a pencil. And when they see something that can be done better or faster or cheaper, they write the idea down, and we save millions of dollars and improve our product every year by implementing our factory workers' ideas. Went back to Detroit, went to General Motors, and I said, so what's the big idea? Why aren't you giving your factory workers pencils? The Japanese are killing us with their pencils. And the General Motors factory manager said, we could give our workers pencils, but 60% of them are functionally illiterate, and it wouldn't do any good. Now, you can't win with a workforce that's illiterate in an economy of ideas. And so I don't know the ins and outs of Oregon's education. I know that it's always a battle in the legislature. I know that there are initiatives that limit your ability to raise the dollars that most people would agree the state needs to do the job. It's obviously an essential component to playing the game and winning if you believe in ideas and talent as two of the most critical variables to economic growth and competitive success.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question from the floor here. About 25% of the population is in need of affordable housing. These people don't have the resources to get the market to respond to their needs. Can we solve problems of dramatic wealth disparities? What innovation and sweeping changes are needed to solve these problems?
Wow.
Nice, easy one for you.
Wow. Well, I think the first thing that would solve it would be if everybody subscribed to Fast Company. We would deal with a wealth problem that I have, disparity in our family. Now, I don't mean to make light of the question. It's just one of those, if I could answer that question, why would I be at the City Club? Let me use it, however, as a springboard to one more time plug the Innovation Partnership. If you look at Portland versus, say, New York City, the comparison is striking. The problem of a world of have-nots, of people who have been left behind, who have been left out, who don't have a shot at economic opportunity, who don't have good housing in New York is so much more dire, I would suggest, than in Portland. And yet there is this wonderful organization in New York that really is providing the model for the Innovation Partnership in some ways, the Fund for the City of New York, and a woman named Mary McCormick, who we wrote about last year in Fast Company, where the belief is, and I think it's a sound theory that needs to be put to the test, that the only way to solve problems of economic, social disparity is by harnessing the intelligence, the creativity, the initiative of people at all levels of the community. It's not the job of the leaders of the city to solve it. You have to have leaders at all levels of the city. You have to have people who are willing to regard this as a critical choice for the future. And you've got to believe, I think, in bottom-up leadership. You've got to get granular and get close to the streets. I will guarantee you that if you talk to people who are homeless and ask them how to solve the problem or what they think about their predicament, they have suggestions. They have ideas. Nobody listens to them because they're homeless. And yet they are the customers that you're trying to work with. If you go do a scan of your own community and neighborhood conditions and make that information available to the people in this room and to all the people of the city as a lightning bolt of opportunity, people will step up to the plate to make a difference. You invite them to participate, make it possible and make it worthwhile, and people will participate. And that's the promise of the internet as one tool, one medium. It's a fundamental democratic medium to use it, to plug into it, to have a dialogue rather than a monologue through it, and to plug into the problems of the city, the people who are closest to it at the neighborhood level, and the people who care most about solving it at the level of community involvement. And I don't know any other way to do it. I don't think you can do it through old-fashioned checkbook philanthropy. I don't think you can do it by looking to historical solutions. I think we're in new, uncharted territory, and we've got to write whole new scripts and try whole new approaches.
Another one from the floor. As 401k contributions increase and other pension funds increase, this provides an artificial stimulus, perhaps to undeserving businesses in new economy guise. Are they disguising which is the right bus to be on in the first place? And what do we do about it?
Good question. Interesting question. Well, in fact, I'm not sure I can comment on the connection between 401k plans and the internet bubble, but it's certainly clear that what Jim Collins was writing about when he talked about Built to Flip was people who got on the wrong bus with the wrong people and in the wrong seat. And what was created was a good old-fashioned bubble. For those of you who haven't read Robert Schiller's book, Irrational Exuberance, I recommend it. It's a great read. He is an economist, but his other habits are good. And he's a very bright guy. He's easy to read. And the interesting thing is if you put his book, Irrational Exuberance, next to John Kenneth Galbraith's book, The Great Crash, written about the crash of '29, it's exactly the same phenomenon 70-plus years later. And what it is, really, I think, fundamentally, is a loss of that sense of core mission, of what really counts, and of what really matters. And I mean, it's an issue of human nature, that people told that somebody else is getting rich quick and doing no work, that sounds pretty good to most people. Money for nothing and chicks for free, as they used to say. That's not a bad model for a rock star or for an economy for a short period of time. And after a while, the bubble pops, and then you have what we have right now, which is a lot of people scratching their heads saying, how could we have been so stupid? Were we all smoking web crack? And the answer is yes. It was an addictive period of about 2 years where people lost track of what really mattered. It happens in companies, it happens in cities, it happens in communities, it happens in economies. It happened to Japan before us. And we are, I think, to our credit as an economy and as a country, we are much more likely to hold ourselves accountable and to deal with it quickly. I think the antidote is not irrational depression, however, which is where we seem to be right now, assuming that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. We should all now be so ashamed of our behavior over the last 2 years that we should stop investing entirely, seems to me to be equally extreme and equally irrational. I think there are 3 words that the occupants of the new economy should embrace going forward. First is accountability. Do you do what you say you're going to do? Second is credibility. Do you do stuff that matters? Are you credible, and are you doing work that really, really counts? And the third is authenticity. Are you being true to who you say you are every morning when you get up and go to work? Or are you putting on a mask and a guise? Have you adopted a false persona? I think for a period of time, too many people in the new economy, in the dot-com world in particular, although not only in the dot-com world, got caught up in a make-believe world. It was sustainable for a while. In retrospect, it was completely ludicrous.
Well, thank you. You've given us a lot to think about, and you give us a reading list to keep us busy all summer long. And so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. We look forward to seeing you all next Friday. Thank you.